Okay, I've got some vocal there, and I want to just reiterate, uh, I'm going ahead and holding class at pretty much the usual time, doing the screencast. I don't expect anybody. I may have a few of you perhaps who will join uh, via your own machine, your own phone, whatever. But again, the university is closed, but I'm providing the screencast so that you have the material to cover. So the material is covered and we stay on track. And of course, the great advantage of this technology, it's pretty simple. I can record this and you can look at it later today. You can look at it tomorrow, whenever. Now, again, we're in module 3, okay? And I want to make sure that we stay, in sync with the course and how the modules are laid out. And there are a couple of things that I want to go ahead and make sure that you understand. First of all, when I'm talking here about upload par inc continued, okay, here's what I want you to do, okay? The par inc continued is very simply, all I want you to do is to run par inc, all right, and then get the sensitivity report. Now, I made the par incorporated key available, okay? So all I want you to do is take the key, okay, and run the sensitivity report. That's all that I want you to do. So I'll just show you here. I'm going to take par inc, okay, and I'm going to download it. This is the key, of course, and we spoke about that, all right. And so I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to save it, on my desktop. All right, and in fact, I think I'm going to call it par, and I'm going to call this par inc continued. And the continued issue is, I'm going to say this is par inc continued on my desktop, and then we're going to talk about this, and we're going to again revisit this issue of sensitivity analysis using Excel and using the solver, okay? So I've got this saved on my desktop, and I'm going to close it off for just a minute, okay? I'm going to diminish down, and there it is, par inc continued. I loaded it, I saved it to my desktop, renamed it, and now I'm going to open it up. Okay, and I'm going to take and we're gonna take those first steps, and when we really start to get the most out of Excel, out of Solver. And so I'm going to click on Data, on the Data tab, and there's Solver. And of course, we're trying to maximize total profit, which is there in cell B18. Okay, and by changing the decision variables B16 and C16, and of course B16 and C16 are the number of bags we're going to produce, standard versus deluxe. And as I said before, this is what we call a load-bearing problem, okay, of trying to find the optimal balance. Yeah, and think of it like this, in many cars, many vehicles, you have an optimal you have an optimal amount of air in your tires, okay? Not too much, there's an amount that's recommended by the manufacturer, because that will give you the best ride and best performance. Well, now we're wanting to maximize the total profit, okay? And I had given you this problem, and I said, okay, change these variables, pardon me, these constraints, okay, and how many bags of each should we produce? And we want to you under our original constraints, that's over on page 90 in the textbook, maximum profit was 76.68. But we changed these constraints and we changed our maximum total output. And the reason is we're just simply, making fewer bags. And because we're reducing the maximum, we're reducing that maximum total profit. Okay? And I ask you that, which of these did it increase, which of these did it set? And we went from there. Okay? So we're going to forge ahead there. And now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and solve. And of course, we're using Simplex LP. And now we want to get the sensitivity report. Now, there are 3 reports that you can get. You can get the answer, the sensibility, and the limits. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to walk into, let's just go ahead and get all 3 reports. And so we'll click answer, sensitivity, and limits, and press down control, and then it will generate those reports. Okay, and now you say, I want you to notice something. The tab name, sensitivity report 1, answer report 1, limits report number 1. What Solver assume and what the creators of this, what Excel, what we assume is that you're going to do several of these. Okay, and we've talked about where do I get these figures, where would I come up with that change in the assumptions, etc. And we've talked about that at great length. Now I'm going to diminish this down for a moment, and as I've said many times before, okay, please make sure that you have the textbook with you, because you're not going to get the benefit of really getting everything unless you've got it in front of you, especially on a day-to-day a lesson like this one. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and pardon me, I'm going to come over here to the book, and I have the book online. I have it in its digital form, and this is Appendix 1, 3.1, excuse me, over on page 148. Now, I've checked, and my online textbook lines up in terms of pagination with the physical textbook. Okay, so we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at the managerial report. Okay, now this Appendix 3.1 over on page 148. We're going to look at this through 152 and talk about the sensitivity analysis with Excel. Now, we've done the Excel Solver results dialog box, okay? And then we choose the answer tab. We click the answer report, the sensitivity report, and the limits report. And this is the solution for PAR. Remember, what I had you change some of these. I had you change these standards. Now I'm going to put this right here and see if I can get this into a I may not be able to do it where you can compare those. Don't think I'm going to be able to do it, so we'll stay there. But the bottom line is, here's the time available, the production time, the profit per bag, and with these resources available, as you recall, because we have greater resources here, we can maximize, so we'll get a higher maximum total product. And then, of course, then we can see, okay, the constraints. Now we come into the heart of the of the of the sensitivity report, and this has got the sensitivity report. This is over on page 149 that is designed for users of Excel. Okay, and let's take a look at this for just a minute. And the book's going to give us the narrative. Now, if you look there and at these first two, the final values, those are the optimal values. Okay, and we look to see if we've reduced any cost, and we haven't. We focused on maximizing profit. And you'll see there as we go, and I'm going right across here as we have the objective coefficient, okay? And then we have, can we increase the bags produced? How much can we increase this, and how much can we decrease it? And we see on the standard bags, we can increase them by, let's call it 3. And then we can decrease them by 4. So we have this range here in terms of the bags produced. And we can still say within a reasonable band. Think of the allowable increase and the allowable decrease as upper and lower limits. Okay. Now we come down and we look at the bag, the deluxe bags, okay, and we see the objective coefficient, and the final value and how much we can increase them, and we have an allowable increase of 5 and allowable decrease of 2. So here we have an upper limit and a lower limit. That's the best way to think of these. And now you can use sensitivity report and to say, okay, what would we have to do to change those variables? And that means we're going to have to change, if we want to produce more, we're going to have to manipulate these resources. But this gives us upper and lower control, upper and lower limits as regards the variables. Then we come down to the constraints. And of course, this begins to tell us, again, upper and lower limit. Now here's this thing over here which is called the shadow price, okay? And the shadow price is also known as the dual price. And if you take a look over at page 95, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to read about the range of optimality. That's going to talk about graphical sensitivity analysis, the range of optimality, and that gives you the range over for which the objective function, okay, is going to hold. And you can also think of the dual price in terms of saying, okay, if I increase one of these, then what do I get? Okay, and that's, and again, we're looking at sensitivity or marginal analysis. Now, as we look here in terms of the variables, all right, when we look at the upper and lower limits, it's the deluxe that's the most sensitive. Notice there's just not much change between 3.5 and 3.7. You're still talking 3 or 4 bags, but here we're talking the difference between 5 and 2. Okay, and then as we walk through here, we see the constraint on the right-hand side and the allowable increase and the allowable decrease. And so we can start to see the kind of flex that we have. Now, over on page 150, in the textbook. They talk about, the range of optimality. And they walk us through saying, okay, the objective function coefficient, and this is the middle, is 10. The allowable increase is 3.5. The allowable decrease is 3.7. So as I said, this is like a set of upper and lower limits. So the current coefficient, okay, then we have a range of 6.3 to 13.5. That's 10 plus 3.5, or 10 minus 3.7. And then also the same thing for the deluxe, okay? And then they begin to walk us through what are the slack resources, and we'll pop back here for just a moment. And when we find some sewing hours, we start to identify, okay, the shadow price, also known as a dual value, is if I change one unit, how much do I gain in terms of profit? If I change one unit here, how much do I gain? And you can see then the solver, the sensitivity analysis is telling us cutting and dyeing and finishing hours, are keys to this issue. Okay, and they talk about that right here, where they say, the shadow price for each constraint is also the dual value, and the allowable increase and decrease. Now they go ahead and the authors talk about sensitivity analysis using lingo, which sometimes is which is intuitively a little bit better. Now, when you go back over and let's look at the Excel, and one of the things we don't get with Excel is the number of iterations. And we'll go to the answer report and let's see if we've got, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes, it does indeed now give us iterations. As I mentioned to you before, you always want to be thinking about, okay, how many times did I put, how long did it take solver, or how many iterations did it take to solve the problem, or to come to, an optimal solution? And the reason I say that, it's simple, okay? That tells you how complex this is. Okay, and then they give you the maximum number of subproblems, integer solos, and just some of those kinds of limits. And here's the sensitivity report. So we're wanting to know, what are the ranges here? How much could I increase or decrease? Now, pardon me. As we go over here to page 150, again, we see more of that verbiage. And we show it, and it tells us that the shadow price of $4.37.5 is valid for increases up to 52.4 hours and decreases. So it shows us what we get in terms of a decrease or an increase. That's really all there is to it. It can seem a little bit intimidating, but it's really not. Okay. The main thing is this. And we'll go back and take a look at the solution point. Okay, I have made a decision here, all right, to say at 95. Now I could, if I wanted to, use the random number and generate, from 0.10. Up to 0.90. And I'm gonna do this for just a second. I'm gonna put equal random. Okay, and I'm gonna click on there, and it's gonna say I want. Well, let's just go ahead and insert the function. And I want to find random. Okay. And then we want the rand. All right. And it says, okay, this is volatile, and I'm okay with that. And here I have, this is going to generate between 0 and 1. And I can run all these, as many trials as I want. And there they are. And I could choose from here and just start plugging these values in to see what it looks like. Okay. And so I could do those, and I could compare the sensitivity reports, etc. Now, let me say this. I'm just going to close it off for a minute. Maximizing total profit, okay, is what we're trying to do here. As we saw, as we reduce resources here, we reduce maximum total profit. Remember, we had an original value of 76.68. Okay, so that is, as far as I'm concerned, the key part of understanding the sensitivity report. Now, there's a limits report. Okay, and that one is certainly worth looking at. In the limits report, we can see the maximum value we can get in terms of bags produced, standard and deluxe, and the upper limit and the objective result, and the lower limit with an objective result. Now, pardon me. Now, if we go on over here, but again, this range of optimality is probably the most important piece of this. Okay? And they walk us through using lingo. And they use that term dual price rather than dual value. And the authors conclude as they talk about using the lingo tool. Well, we're going to be using Excel. Now, fortuitously, now we're ready to jump over into chapter 4. And so I want to go back over here to the text. And again, you have par Inc. continued. Okay. And we'll go back here to the solution area. And I'm going to save. And then again, all I've done is I took the par Inc. and I ran the reports. Okay. And then you upload it. Over here, I'm going to go to the syllabus area where it says par Inc. continued. And there's the par Inc. upload. And then I ask you to upload par Inc. continued. And that pretty much does it. I'll go back over here to the modules. Now, before I end this, as we've talked about the sensitivity reports and that tool, I want to make sure, all right, that you don't miss some of the resources I have for you here This is from Excel Easy, Excel Easy or Easy Excel. I can't remember the website. Shadow pricing and linear programming. Here's an example in which they use shadow pricing and some others. And for example, and then here is finding the geography of an efficient frontier. In other words, finding the optimal area. Portfolio theory, because we can use this. We can use this technique to look at investment types of situations. Okay, and I ask you to upload Par Inc. continued on the 23rd. So you'll upload what I just showed you. Okay, and today is the 21st. So you got till Thursday at whatever time. So I'm going to back over into the syllabus area. All right. In fact, I'll just go to the assignments area. I'll let that populate itself. This is where you do all the uploads. And there you are. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to the module because now we're going to talk about another case, and that's the Hewlett case. Because this week, I wanted you to also upload the Hewlett case. Now, the Hewlett case is over here on, if I'm not mistaken, an appendix 4.1. And you'll notice I'm kind of working through these appendices, and that's going to be over on page 210 to 213. Okay? And I'm going to have you do some work with that. Now, that's appendix 4.1. And so I'm going to go, let's see here. And I want to do a search, and I'm going to do Hewlett. I believe that's how you spell them. And there we are. This corporation is dealing with a financial planning problem. Now, what you're going to discover is this: Solver is a tremendously versatile tool for the simple reason, okay, that it's basically a mathematical model, okay, that we can build, and it's based on that all objective functions have constraints. They have a target. I'm either maximizing, minimizing, or going for a target value. We have decision variables. So that's the model. Okay, so that's why it's so applicable. So here we have a financial planning problem, and this is Hewlett Corporation. Okay, and they show you the Excel solution for that. Now I'm going to go over here in the files. All right. And I'm going to come down here to those MS files, MS-13 web files. And I'm going to download that. All right. And I'm going to go to chapter 4, the Excel files, and I'm going to get the Hewlett file. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to do some things with Hewlett. All right. So I'm going to take this file. All right. And I'm going to save it as Hewlett on my desktop. And it's just called a copy of the, I'm going to put Hewlett Harmon. You can do what you want to, put your last name, I don't care. Save it to my desktop. Okay. Then I'm going to close it. I'll close off that zip file. And I'm going to go down to my desktop and open it up. Now, here we have the solution. Okay. Now, the case, okay, starts over here on Appendix 4.1, which is going to go from page 210, I think, to 214, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's 210 to 213. Okay. And they're going to talk about, this is a corporation, and they're trying to it's a financial planning problem. Okay. And they want to make sure that they have enough funding to pay to meet the cash requirements for the employee retirement program. Now, you have your Hewlett file saved down on your computer, your desktop. Then you close it, then you reopen it. So you'll be ready to open it up. And I'm not going to go through the solution, but I am going to come up here into the module. Okay, and we'll come down here to this module. And I'm going to click on Upload Hewlett here. And here is the prompt for this exercise, i.e. what I want you to read and do. Okay. Now I've copied it, and so I'm going to click Insert, text box, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll make that bigger font so it's easier to read. I can even take it up to 20. And so I said, here you have to read some background material, pages 164 to 168. Okay. And then see Appendix 4.1, pages 210 to 213. Okay. Now, here is what I'm asking you to do. Use Solver to compute the cash flows and the minimum funds necessary if the price of all three bonds increases 2.5% and the price of all three bonds decrease 2.5%. So I want you to see, what do you get if the price of those bonds goes up 2.5%, if the price of the bonds decreases 2.5%, and you've got the bond prices here, and you don't have to change anything else. You don't have to worry about the required rate of return, the years of maturity. Here are the cash requirements. We know those. And I just want you to plug in and change these variables and see what happens. And you can you can do this part A and see what happens. And I'd like to see a sensitivity report, an answer report, and a constraints, and then do the where the price of the bonds decreases 2.5%. Okay. And again, get me an answer, which will end up being answer 2. All right. And then sensitivity analysis 2 and constraints report number 2. And that's what I want you to do for Hewlett. And we'll talk about that, when we have class on Monday. Now, don't forget, Friday, is always a virtual lab day where you can do your work. And so, right now, I've got my, I've got the file. I have what I'm supposed to do in here, and then I'll do the work and upload it. Okay, and here's what we're trying to do. Why are we doing it? Well, we're looking at market fluctuations in terms of price. Okay, now it could just as well be the rate, but we've got these minimum funds. Okay, And notice that it equals A17. All right, and that's our model. And you'll see the net cash flows each year. So we're making these investments. So we have certain cash flow obligations to meet. Those are our constraints. And they're going to spend some time talking about that over in the textbook. All right. Now I'm going to go back over here for a moment. And they show you the Excel solution for this. That's the minimum funds. Okay. And then we have each of those periods. Those cash flows. And they talk about what we've got there in terms of organizing the spreadsheet. And we have our assumptions area, and then of course we have an output area. And they walk us through how we got the decision variables and the objective function and the left-hand side of the equation and the right-hand side. And then they walk us through the solution. And then they walk us through the sensitivity report. And this is for the base file, if you will. Now, remember, I'm going to have you change those bond prices and see what happens. And I want you to generate an answer report, a sensitivity report, and a constraints report for when the bond prices go up 2.5%, and then when the bond prices go back down 2.5%. Okay. Now you could say this, Dr. Harmon, what stops me from just going ahead? Okay, and I'm going to delete that. Say, Dr. Harmon, what stops me from just going ahead and taking the solution tab, okay, and make a copy of it, okay, and there's a mover copy, and I want to create a copy, and I want to move it to the end, and we'll do that. And then I'll just simply I come up here and I want to move or copy, and I'll move to the end, create a copy, and I have the solution, and then solution 2 and solution 3, and then I can run. I have the sensitivity report output for the original solution, okay? But then I can do the 3 reports for solution 2. I can do the 3 reports for solution 3. Okay? And that's just to, again, get us comfortable with looking at these and what do we end up with, okay? And again, to start to see the versatility of this tool. Now, again, there we'll see pages 210 to 213 to talk about this. And then talk about, of course, the terms, the shadow price. And this is important. The shadow price describe the change in the value of the solution per unit increase in the right-hand side of a constraint. That is extremely important. So once you get this, you can understand then, okay, sensitivity analysis starts to tell us which of these are the most volatile, and thus the ones maybe either most controllable or least controllable. And it's just going to depend upon the particular constraint or decision variable that you're working with. Now, just to keep us on track in terms of some of our housekeeping, I'm going to go back to the modules. And don't forget, okay, that you can, if you want to, well, this will be available. And don't forget, on the 16th of February, which is, let me move on down here. We're down to the 23rd. On the 23rd of February, you have a quiz over Chapter 5. And don't neglect taking a look at these resources. Again, I'm not going to give you a quiz over these, but if you really want to enhance your understanding, then here are resources for you to look at. And these things are, I usually try to provide you some type of practical example of the use of solver in that particular type of problem, okay, as well as something that supplements the text. Well, here's sensitivity analysis from Excel Easy. And they go through a whole detailed set of questions. They show you an example and how to understand what you're looking at. The textbook does this too, but again, seeing it in a different context should help. All right, now I'm going to close that off for a minute. And then we'll go back. And I think Easy Excel does a great job of really helping us stay on track in terms of, well, exactly what is this thing supposed to do? Then I have a sensitivity analysis. Then I have shadow price and linear programming. And this talks about how that all works. Okay. And here, for example, the shadow price associated with a resource tells you how much more profit you would get by increasing the amount of that resource by 1 unit. In other words, it's a measure of marginal utility. Okay? And we're always about marginal utility. I also have some other related resources here for you. Here's an example of using shadow pricing as a tool in reducing carbon footprint. Here's one, decreasing congestion with driverless cars. Okay, and one article about a resource about the efficient frontier, and then modern portfolio theory that talks about this idea of sensitivity analysis or marginal utility. Okay, and that's really what you're going to be taking a look at. I think of all the resources here, I think certainly these two are good in giving you a fundamental understanding now of what you're looking at when you get the sensitivity report, when you get the sensitivity analysis. Now, I think, yeah, as I've encouraged you to do, all right, yeah, do one solution, then do a second solution. So let's click on solution 2 for a minute. Let's just take a look at this, okay? And I said, well, okay, if the price of all 3 bonds goes down, increases by 2%. So I'm gonna this equals 1 plus 0.025. Okay. And I'm going to name that. I'm going to go in here under the formulas, and I'm going to define that name, and I'm going to call it price, okay, bond price change. I'll put bond and then underscore price and then underscore increment. And okay, now I'm going to use in a formula. And I'll use it in the formula, the bond price increment. Boom. Okay. And then I'm going to carry this on across. I didn't want to do that. Yeah, I have to do each individual because we've got values in there. Okay, there we go. Ah. Okay. Now I've made the increment. Okay, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click data, and I'm going to run solver. And let's see what happens. And I get a solution, and then I can do the answer, the sensitivity, and the limits. Okay? Well, it's about 11:39, and I started a little bit early, so we're close to our 50 minutes. All right? And again, you know, I would also probably I would probably label this price increments. Bond price increment. And then I would put bond price decrement. And that's going to equal 1 minus 0.025. Now, just to be sure, I'm going to I'm going to do a new tab here, and I'm going to see if the word decrement actually exists. Decrement, a reduction or diminution, okay? Cause a discrete reduction in a numerical quantity. So when you hear me use the term increment and decrement, okay, it's better to use those terms and get used to using them rather than the term change. Now, if you don't want increment and decrement are fancy ways to say increase or decrease, okay? But make sure when you talk about the change, you refer to it in the direction. I just thought, if you're going to pay money for a fancy degree, use some fancy language. I'm playing with you. All right? And so I'll go back down here, and you see I've done that. Now I've got my solution for number 2, and I can I can go back up here to solver, and I can solve it again. and I can get my reports. Okay. Well, we started about 10 or 15 minutes early, and so we've hit our 50 minutes or a little bit over for today. And again, I want to encourage you to go out and look at those resources. Of course, you have, I'm going to save this to my desktop when you finish, and then you'll upload it. So make sure that we're on target here on the 23rd, okay, which is the 23rd, which is Friday. Par Inc. continued is due, as is Hewlett. Okay, and then you have Chapter 5, an exam from Chapter 5. Okay, so you've got all that work due, and I'm going to go ahead and then stop the share, and then end the meeting, and I'll make this recording and I'll upload it. Okay? Talk to you later, folks. Take care.